I'm going to tell you exactly why Jimbo Fisher should never, ever be the answer at West Virginia University, and we're going to talk about that now. And that's on Locked On West Virginia. Stick around. Watch out.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you guys for joining me here on this episode of Locked On West Virginia. Your first listen today, I'm hoping. Hopefully not your last. And thank you for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team, and we do it every day. And that's going to be sponsored by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, and that's guaranteed, guys. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so I've been going at it with people since yesterday about Jimbo, and you know what's crazy is I hadn't even really dug very deep into the Jimbo Fisher saga until the last couple of days. And I have unearthed a lot. I really have. First, I want to say he was very successful at Florida State. He was. Extraordinarily so, during a time where you could keep players for the most part for 4 years. And I think that was a huge part of his success, developing players and refining a roster over a time span of 4, 5, 6 years. Not to mention riding off the momentum that Bobby Bowden left behind, even though it had diminished when he passed away and left the program. Does play a part. It wasn't like Bobby Bowden left the Florida State program in shambles, although it wasn't as good as its peak. It wasn't 99 Florida State. We know that, when Bobby Bowden looked so cool on the sidelines. But anyway, so Jimbo did a great job at Texas A&M and deserved the hire at Florida State, and deserved the hire at Texas A&M, in my opinion. And then the record he compiled, his entire record, which, I mean, look, it's really good. You know, he was 83-23 at Florida State. That's pretty dang good. You know, and I can't take it away from him. 45-25 at Texas A&M looks pretty dang good too. It does. It all looks good on the surface. So I wrote a couple things on X yesterday after I went digging, and here is the things that I'm going to bring up today as for why I think, personally, I don't want him at West Virginia because of these factors. Now, at Texas A&M, he had the number one recruiting class of all time in 2022, and had even had a couple of years to develop those guys. And almost none of them worked out. Haynes King is finally working out at Georgia Tech. And so that probably would have been a good pickup, but he couldn't stay on the field at the time. Would have been nice to see what he could do with that Haynes King that is in Georgia Tech now, but he can't. And let's just read it off, you know. Jimbo Fisher's SEC record at Texas A&M, where you had the Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan resources, but not giving the Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia results. 27-21, which is just barely over 50%, with the top staff, players, and NIL support. Slightly better than Kevin Sumlin, his predecessor, record of 25-23, which Sumlin was fired for poor home game performance. Fisher was fired for bad road performance. What have we struggled with, and what do we say about Neil Brown, his biggest detractor, one of his biggest detractors? Brad Smith brings up a lot. And listen, I am in agreement of this. He hasn't won a big game on the road against a ranked team. So if that's true for Neil Brown, then shouldn't it stand to reason it should be true for Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M? I mean, how is he being held to a lesser standard at Texas A&M? But just because the competition is fiercer at the top, and let's not pretend like Mississippi State isn't the same or similar as a Big 12 team or Vanderbilt or even Florida on a year like this year. I don't buy that the SEC from top to bottom is so difficult that you just when you're in Alabama in the A&M or at A&M, you should get weeks off based off your talent. In the Big 12, that's not the case. Everybody's the same, just like we heard yesterday. So he was fired for poor road game performance. He was 7-14 in the SEC road games. That's a 3.333 win percentage, 33%. 3-11 against SEC West teams. That's putrid. That's not good. I mean, obviously. Obviously, and I get it. The best of the best are in the SEC West, but that's what he was paid to go do, right? I don't know. And obviously, I didn't even factor in against which teams what he did. I just didn't have time for it all. But I mean, Alabama, he was 1-5 against, so he got one victory against Alabama, right? Wasn't with Johnny Football. I'm not really sure who it was against, but it's a tough. Nobody's saying it's not a tough overall conference because it is. But 3-11, come on. He was on a 6-game losing streak against SEC West teams since a win over Auburn in 12-5, December 5th of 2020. Ironically, Sumlin was 13-9, which is like kryptonite around here, 13-9 on SEC road games, and 9-8 against SEC West teams. So his predecessor was better somehow at that, which is pretty shocking. Fisher lost 9 consecutive road games, guys. Do you realize that? Neil Brown's never done that. 9 consecutive road games, including 8 SEC road games since a win over Missouri on 10/16/2021 in year 5 performance. He lost to Appalachian State, guys, in 22, 17-14. He could only score 14 against App State. The same year, he had the best recruiting class, some people would say, in history. Come on. His first loss to a non-Power 5 team since 2008 when he lost to Arkansas State. The previous season, he finished 5-7 and still got the number 1 class. It may have been 21 other than 22, but one of those 2 years it was number 1 class. Every year other than that, it was top 7. But he didn't even go to a bowl game at Texas A&M. And someone never finished worse than 7-5, right? Jimbo Fisher had a 2-6 SEC record, finished last in the SEC West, losing both games against SEC East teams, South Carolina and Florida, and just missed a bowl game, when it really should have mattered. One bad season. What are you talking about, George? I can see it's obviously sarcasm dripping all off your comment. Listen, brother, if you think 3-11 is one bad anything, or 7-14 on the road is one bad, come on. He lost 9 consecutive games on the road. So if you can't see that, you're blind. You're blind. That's my opinion. And if that's what you want at WVU, where there's less resources, you're blind and choosing to be blind. That's my opinion. I'm out on Jimbo Fisher. If he's ever hired as our coach, I'll support him fully. I'll come on here and do everything. It'll start from scratch. Obviously, you have to judge him on what he does. And this year we're 2-2, and I don't know what the future holds. In a perfect world, Neil Brown becomes a beamer, right? He figures it out after 4 or 5 seasons, 6 seasons. In a perfect world, do I think that's going to happen? It's definitely not likely. But I'll say this: I want it to happen. I do. I want him to figure it out. So at the end of the day, those are my reasons for and against Fisher. If the NIL era can change back to when you can develop players and you can don't have to buy players, I think that's where Fisher was best. Is when you can recruit a player, develop a player, and although you might lose one here or there, you keep the bulk of the roster that you develop. Had he been allowed to do that at Texas A&M, I have no doubt that he would have been better. But this era of buying players obviously wasn't for him. Whoever scouted those kids or whoever put his teams together definitely crapped the bed. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, we're going to talk about Zack Frazier, guys. Is he irreplaceable? Are we expecting too much out of this offensive line this year? I think it's a fair question, and we're going to talk about that next. Stick around for Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. Did you know that? It's #1. Pretty cool stuff. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's that simple. $200 in bonus bets is guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And let's check out the line on West Virginia versus Oklahoma State now. Let's see. Wow. As of yesterday when I checked, it had moved in Oklahoma State's favor. Let's see. We are at – sorry, my internet's moving slow here. Okay. The line is – the over-under is way up there. Holy cow, 65. Oklahoma State still at 4.5 points, so it has moved a point in Oklahoma State's favor still. Who knows where the money's going to go on it, guys. But before you place your bets, head to FanDuel, and let's keep checking out that line as we get closer to game day, guys. Zack Frazier. I had Tony Franklin, former offensive coordinator at Kentucky, former offensive coordinator at Auburn. He was Jared Goff's offensive coordinator at Cal. He's such a successful offensive coach at times. And he'll admit as quickly as anybody else that he got fired, and that he definitely had bad years too. But there were at times with Tim Couch and others where he was the best offensive coordinator in football. And he told me yesterday that Zack Frazier may be the best offensive lineman in college football history when it's all said and done, based off what people are telling him and what Zack Frazier's done in the NFL so far. Let's pull up something I saw earlier, see if I can find it anyways. Hold on just a second. Yeah. All right. So Pro Football Focus has named Zack Frazier an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate. What's up, Daniel Sargent? What's up, George? Matthew Watkins? I'll answer this question for you real quick, George. He said, who's the guy then, Paul, a guy from Group of 5 that's not dealing with high-level paid talent? Well, George, I think it's just not Jimbo. That's all I'm saying. And I don't know if it's – I prefer it not to be Group of 5 either, really. Somebody mentioned Barry Odom and what he's done at UNLV. I think it is impressive. He still wouldn't be my #1 pick, but I think Barry Odom is a name. He didn't really get it done at Missouri, but he has adapted with the times. So coaches that struggled with developing talent can now win in a buy talent kind of era. And so teams that struggled or coaches that struggled at developing may be better in a situation like this where you can hire a guy like Drew Fabianich, right? That can look over your roster and all you have to do is coach him. That's something to be said for that. Jupiter Mojo, I don't, and here's why. I love Tony. I love, but we have to somehow, our fans have to get away from this West Virginia centric nature of things. We're going to get left behind. Tony is getting shredded in North Carolina State right now this year. His defense is probably on par or as bad as Jordan Leslie's is. I don't know if you watched this or seen this, but it's been really bad. And keep in mind, guys, that Tony Gibson was the coordinator at West Virginia during the year when we had Kyler Murray versus Will Grier. I think that was a 58 to whatever that 55 58 to 55 game. And the 3-3-5 defense is going out of style. It's crazy. So I talked to Tony about this yesterday, Tony Franklin. He said what happened was, so all offenses went up tempo, right? And so in response, defenses got smaller and went 3-3-5. That's why you see safeties playing linebacker now, right? Because offenses went fast and big defenses were getting gassed from all the plays. Well, now you see teams reverted, and Oklahoma State, Kansas State, even WVU now, all going to two-back systems with bigger sets and not going fast because defenses are small now, and you can kind of push them around. And so it's just the cyclical effect of what the industry is doing, what's popular right now. So I think the 3-3-5 that Tony runs is kind of out of style. Iowa State really made it popular, but we were doing it even before them, really. So I don't know. So Daniel Sargent says West Virginia's defense 106 altogether, and NC State's is 93rd. So both are bad, right? I mean, it's not like I wanted Tony to be better, but he hasn't been, unfortunately. Trying to remember who said that. Jupiter Mojo. And look, and you can disagree with me, guys, but look, it's fine. It's okay to disagree. You know, we all have different opinions. Oh, you won that game 59-56. I know it was a 3-point game. I thought it was 58-55, but yeah, thanks for looking that up for me, brother. Iowa State, John hit. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's check out this because I have something I want to go over really quick about Zack. I thought about doing a full episode on this, and I still might. I just haven't been able to dive into the numbers as much as I want. So, center of attention, PFF names Zack Frazier an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate, and that includes skill players. There's a reason the Steelers are so thankful for Zack Frazier. Since training camp, they've had to deal with a spate of injuries. That's a word you don't see often. Spate of injuries along the offensive line. Left guard Isaac Samalo has missed the first 4 games of the season due to a pec injury. Nate Herbig suffered a season-ending rotator cuff injury, which was really Zach's big break. Don't want to see anybody hurt, but that's just the truth. Training camp. And in addition, Pittsburgh lost first-round pick in April offensive tackle for Troy Faltanu from Penn State, who suffered a knee injury that will sideline him for the rest of the year. As if things could get worse, as he was learned last weekend, the right guard James Daniels will miss the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. Gosh. Despite the injuries up front, the Steelers own an AFC North leading 3-1 record. Part of the reason for that has been rookie Zack Frazier. He's a stabilizing force in the middle of the line, which Pittsburgh desperately needs at this point in the season. Frazier's been so impressive that he's starting to hear his name floated around in Offensive Rookie of the Year conversations. On Wednesday, on the Pro Football Focus show, Trevor Sakima and John Ledyard both gave Frazier some love. Each analyst had Frazier slotted in their top 3 in terms of rookies most likely to win the award. I think he's having a fantastic season, and it's getting a lot of light. For him to step into the offensive line and play at the NFL level and look as good as he has been unbelievable. Frazier became a starter on short notice, and that's what Sakima is alluding to here. Herbig suffered his injury toward the end of training camp. Since stepping into the starting role, Frazier is as reliable as he could possibly be for Pittsburgh. Through 4 games, he has been on the field for 100% of the team's offensive snaps. Ledyard had Frazier and New York Giants rookie wide receiver Malik Nabers essentially tied. He gave both compliments of his own. I've watched all their snaps, and they have been outstanding in all 4 games. More specific to Frazier, Ledger credited him for playing like one of the best centers in the league already. I haven't seen anybody beat him one-on-one this season in pass protection. He's one of the best run-blocking centers in the league already. He's graded the 4th highest graded center in the NFL per Pro Football Focus. It's nice to see get some credit from Zack Frazier in the media, and he absolutely deserves it with all that uncertainty that surrounds the Steelers' O-line. Having Frazier play at such an excellent level to start his career has been extremely important. Okay, that's not any numbers in that. Guys, Zack Frazier got graded in one game this year at a 95. He had a 95 run grade and a 95 pass grade. It's to the point now to where some people believe that's not if, but when he'll be the best offensive lineman in football. I think we're expecting too much out of our offensive line. Everybody's asking where's Jaheim White and where's CJ. And I think that we've had to adjust way more than I just wanted to believe. I knew it was going to be a loss with Frazier, but I thought we had so much returning experience that the O-line would be better. And it has been good. It's not like it's been bad. It's been very little sacks, very little pressure given up. And a lot of that has to do with the edges. Nick Malone and Wyatt Malum have actually been the 2 best players on the O-line, which is hard to believe. We've struggled at center and guard a little bit with Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard. It's not been a lot, but if we have struggled anywhere, if you had to say there was a weak link on the O-line, I would say it's probably there based on my film study, and that's where teams attack. We've seen some double A blitz, which if you don't know what a double A blitz, it's where both guards get attacked. On some of our Cobb blocking schemes that we run, which is basically center on backer, it's where the guard down blocks on the defensive end, on the guard down, or the center down blocks on, I'm losing my mind here, the guard down blocks on the end or on the tackle, sorry, I'm losing my mind here. And the center pulls around and gets on a backer, and the running back has a decision to make based off what the edge defender that the guard is blocking does. But, so a lot of that's kind of been screwy, at least a couple of plays that I watched. And I'm no pro tape guy. I'm just an average Joe that watches some film. So I'm not perfect at it. But so I think Zach is a huge reason that we've taken a step back, is what I'm trying to get at here. I still think our offensive line is good. I don't think it's any longer considered the best in college football like it probably could have been last year had we had a better passing attack, if we had had more accurate quarterback at times or better receivers, which you can say that about every team. I get it. But look, we started the year with Cortez Braham, the other little kid. Those guys were gone and didn't play the rest of the year after the first 2 games. And those guys started in week 1. What was the other little cat's name? Trying to remember his name off the top of my head here. Anyway, somebody will probably tell me down below. But, yeah, so it was Cortez Braham and the other really short little guy that just never showed up. He was a little quick juke bug. It's like a Jock Sanders, but he never I don't even know if he had a catch. Braham had his moments, but those guys were gone after like 3 games. And so we had to rely on our freshmen. Jeremiah Aaron. Thank you, Daniel. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm having an anxiety attack and I'm having to fight through it. So just stick with me here. Just trying to get to my breathing a little bit. But that's what sometimes it happens. It happens to me during lives a lot, but I'm able to usually push through it. But there are times whenever I have panic attacks. Part of the alcoholic or addict brain is you have to you heal from a lot of past stuff like the trauma and stuff. So my brain plus my health related issues don't help. And I just had my house sprayed for bugs today. So I've had like all these gnats flying around. And I think the chemicals. Thank you, Annette. Appreciate that very much. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, guys, let's talk about anything you want to talk about. We can talk still more a little bit about Zack Frazier. But let's just have a Q&A session. I'll go down some comments, and we'll continue the show for a few more minutes. Thank you guys for sticking around. We can talk about Jimbo, too, if you want. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Game Time. Listen, I love live events. I've told you that over and over again. I've had tickets to many games this year that I should have went to, could have went to. Game Time made that so easy for me, and I'm not going to lie. If it wasn't for the health issues, I would have been at those games. Game Time Picks makes curation a lot easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They have an all-in pricing feature that you can toggle on. It's up front, no surprise fees at checkout. All-in pricing is what you want, guys. They lock it in, and if you can find a better price, they guarantee it. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee we just talked about, 110% of the difference comes back to you. They give you an extra 10% if you can find a lower price. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, guys. That's pretty dang good, man. Game Times really is a good app, legitimately. Go to the Game Time app, create an account, use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All you have to do is create an account, then type in LOCKEDON college for $20 off. Download Game Time today, guys. What time is it? It's game time. All right. Tosh Miller. Zach has been a stud this year. That he has. Thank you, Drum Wolf. I'm trying. It's hard because obviously I'm in the middle of a show. We've only got like 3 minutes left, so I should be okay. Okay, I think I'm okay, guys. Thank you for caring. Well, I'll be at the Kansas game in 2 weeks. You mean Kansas State, David? I have a ticket. It all depends on my foot. And I don't think I told you guys this yet, but you guys are going to yell at me. But I had a cellulitis infection, and I didn't take care of it for several months. And I knew it was getting worse, and to the point to where I had a hole in my foot, like just like that big, and it went down about maybe a centimeter. I mean, it was like somebody took a chunk of skin off, and it just won't heal. I've got to keep it wrapped 24 hours a day, and so now to a point to where I probably got to go to wound care. So I'm unfortunate, man. It really is. But at the end of the day, this is what happens, guys. I've told you guys this many times on here, and I'm not trying to preach at anybody. I lived my life the way I wanted to for 13 years as an addict. And even though I'm 5 years into my sobriety, they call this the wreckage of your past. And because I treated myself badly and even now continue to be overweight and do things I shouldn't do, I pay the consequences. So I'm a walking, talking example of just why you shouldn't do any of that stuff to me. Wyatt Mountain is graded as the second best according to Pro Football Focus at 88.7. Thank you, Daniel Sargent, my stats guru. I was so bad at one time I could not even drive. Thanks, Drum Wolf. I appreciate that a lot, man. How old are you, by the way? I've always pictured you being older, but I wasn't sure. Defense is going to ball out tomorrow and make Oklahoma State look like a high school team. That's the hope, Bama. Here's how it would go. Well, if I had my perfect day, the back end would have like 4 picks, just to get that confidence rolling. we can all shut up about it. But if it goes bad for Oklahoma State tomorrow, here's how I think it happens. I think we're going to get a lot of pressure on Alan Bowman. T.J. Jackson's going to eat. I think that's one. I think Tyron Bradley's going to eat. That's two. And we need one other guy to get some pressure. Who's it going to be? That's the question. But if they're able to block our front, it could get a little scary with our back end. Presley's out there. We don't have a guy that can guard Presley one-on-one, do we? At least so far, they haven't shown me that. Okay. Appreciate that, Jimbo. I guess I just thought you were a little older than that for some reason. Maybe it's the name. I don't know what it is. I have to judge people based off their names, you know. Luke Armacost. No faith in Neil Brown. Oklahoma State had our number for a while now, it seems. I think that's fair, Luke, to say. And the thing that to support what you're saying, if you're going to look at this from the other angle, is look, if you look at it last year, what spot were we in? We was in that get right spot for Oklahoma State. They'd coming off a loss to South Alabama. They had struggled. I think they were 2-2, or maybe I don't know what their record was when we played them last year, but they were. We may have played them next week instead of this week of last year. Maybe it was week 5, but they were struggling. You know, we felt like we had a shot in that game, and then we played well for most of the game until the fourth quarter. So it could be similar, you know, in this game where they're probably going to have confidence based off that. Take a break. You need to get away from the bug spray and you're reacting. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. Daniel Sargent, 31-27. Daniel Sargent's young as F, he said. He's 22. Got to get Bowman on his back. We will be good. I agree, Silas. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. All right, guys. We got to end it right there. Thank you all for being here and everything. 30 minutes is the time limit for this, so thanks for sticking around. It's been fun. Keep coming back. I'm going to do a Hoops from the Hills video later if Darren DeVries ever tells us why he put the Let's Go out earlier. So once I figure that out, we'll do something. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On West Virginia, guys. And don't forget, thanks for making me your first listen of the day. But if you can do me a favor for your second listen, check out the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Drake Toll leads the conversation in the conference realignment news, and he holds no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to me. No to Jimbo. Yes to Zach. Yes to WB winning tomorrow. And I'm out.